Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Lulu Essey podcast, where we build mental fitness, confidence, and self-love by following your own blueprint, on your terms, at your pace. This podcast is about personal growth that is truly yours. It's about doing the real inner work of building self-love and self-worth from the inside out. These are honest conversations about becoming who you truly are, with simple tools that meet you exactly where you are. This is unedited and always from the heart. We are in the middle of a series for Mental Health Awareness Month. And the question I have been asking across these episodes in May is, what should we be talking about that we are not talking about? So far, we've talked about self-advocacy, which is the practice of being on your own team. We've talked about the gap between knowing and doing, and functional freeze. What happens when you are still showing up on the outside, but something inside has gone quiet? And last week, we talked about AI and loneliness and what it means that people are turning to machines for the connection they cannot find in humans without even realizing it. And today, I'd like to go somewhere deeper, because underneath all of these conversations, there is something that a lot of us are carrying. And let's call it what it is: grief. Today, I'd like to talk about grief, but not the kind of grief you are probably thinking of. When I say grief, most people think of death. They think of losing someone, which is real and utterly devastating. That is not what this episode is about. This episode is about the grief that has nothing to do with someone dying. It's about grief for the life you thought you would have by now. It's about grief for the stability that was supposed to come after you did all the right things. It's about grief for the career that was supposed to feel more certain than it does right now. It's about grief for the version of yourself you imagined you'd be at this point. The one who had it figured out, or at least you'd have had most of it figured out by now. We're going to explore this. And also, grief for ease. Simply ease. The sense that things were going to get a little easier, a little lighter, a little more grounded and settled. And they haven't. What makes this particular kind of grief so hard is that there is no funeral for it. There is no sympathy card. Nobody sends flowers when you quietly realize that your life does not look the way you thought it would. And because there is no ritual around it, most of us don't call it grief. We call it something else. We call it failure. We call it being a wimp, soft, someone with no grit. We call it not being grateful for what we do have. We call it being permanently stuck, not trying hard enough. We call it not being enough. And then we punish ourselves for it. Because when we think we are failing, we push even harder. When we think we are ungrateful, we silence ourselves. When we think we're stuck, we look for a strategy, a plan, a fix. When we think we are not enough, we carry a silent, powerful lack inside of us that touches everything. But grief does not respond to strategy. Grief does not need a fix, and you cannot think your way through something that lives in your body, like grief lives in your body. There is actually a clinical name for this kind of grief. It's called non-finite grief, which means grief for losses that are ongoing with no clear endpoint. Now, I didn't know that language existed until very recently, and finding it has changed something for me, because it told me that what I was carrying was not a personal failing or a mindset problem. It was a kind of loss, and loss deserves tenderness and care, not a to-do list. Powerful that is happening right now in this moment in our culture that is connected to this grief. This month across the US, graduating students have been booing commencement speakers the moment they mention AI. At the University of Central Florida, a speaker called AI the next industrial revolution, and the entire room erupted in a chorus of boos. At Middle Tennessee State, a CEO was booed with his callous response to "deal with it, it's a tool." At the University of Arizona, the former CEO of Google was booed multiple times. And then at Grand Valley State University in Michigan, Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak stood in front of the same generation and said, "You all have AI, actual intelligence." And the students clapped and cheered. I think about that a lot because those graduates were not booing a technology. They were booing the dismissal of something they are feeling, something that is real and scary for them. And what Wozniak did, whether he knew it or not, was he acknowledged and honored that. He didn't give them a solution, and he did not minimize the disruption. He just looked at a room full of people who are wondering what their future holds and said, "You already have something that cannot be replicated." Now, that is not a strategy. That is recognition. That is hope. That is speaking heart first, not data first or conjecture first. And it landed because that is what people actually need and are craving. Just deal with it is not helpful. It's downright hurtful and disempowering. A recent Gallup survey found that among Gen Z, anger toward AI has risen from 22 to 31% in 1 year. Excitement dropped from 36% to 22%. The researchers said the angriest are the oldest members of that generation, the ones closest to the job market. Now, that is not a tech story, it's a grief story. People are grieving a sense of purpose that feels like it is being redefined faster than they can keep up. Now, I don't have a solution for that. It's not my area, and there are people far more qualified than I am to speak to this. But I do know this. If you feel like the ground is shifting beneath you, you are not imagining it, and that feeling deserves to be named for what it is. It's a kind of grief. What if the reason you cannot shake this feeling is not because something's wrong with you? What if it is because you are actually grieving, and nobody, including you, has called it grief because it's too closely connected to death? The moment we call it grief, a shift is possible, not because the situation changes, but because our relationship to ourselves changes. When we think we are failing, we push harder, try different. When we know we are grieving, we give ourselves the kind of tenderness we would give anyone who lost something that mattered deeply to them. When we think we are ungrateful, we silence ourselves. When we know we are grieving, we understand that grief and gratitude are not opposites. Grief and gratitude can live in our bodies at the same time. We can grieve the life we thought we would have and still feel grateful for the life we are living. Those two things are not in conflict. They can be both true. I will share something personal here, and I'll keep it brief because this is your conversation, not mine. I carry this grief too. I thought I would be much further along as a speaker than I am right now. I do the work. I keep on doing the work daily. I show up. I put myself forward again and again and again. And the progress has not matched the effort in the way I expected. And that grief still rises inside me, even though I've made peace with it. It still catches me off guard. I will be fine for weeks, and then a moment comes, a rejection, a comparison, a quiet evening where it just surfaces, and I feel the weight of it again. And what I've learned is that grief like this is never really done. It just changes into something different. It softens, it shifts, and then sometimes, without any warning, it catches you unaware. And that is not because you have failed at healing. It's because this kind of grief is not really a problem to solve. It's something we learn to carry with more grace. And some days we carry it beautifully, and some days it's heavy, ugly, painful, and both are fine. When I allow the grief and the gratitude to sit together, something opens up. I'm no longer stuck in the loss. I'm not pretending everything is fine either. I am holding what is real. And when we hold what is real, we vote for our tomorrow. We open the possibility for tomorrow to expand beyond today. That is what it means to be on our own team, even when the scoreboard does not look the way we expected. If you are feeling this type of grief, here's what I invite you to do. And this connects to something we explored a few weeks ago in our conversation about functional freeze, when I invited you to get back into your senses. When grief is sitting in your body, the last thing that helps is trying to think your way through it. Instead, choose a song. You don't have to choose it right now, but you can choose it right now if you want. But what I mean is, choose a song with intention, with purpose, with focus. While you are in a calm place, while you have clarity, choose a piece of music that reminds you of something that is still true about you. Something that hasn't been taken from you. Something you believe about yourself. Something that is still yours. Maybe that's a song that makes you feel powerful, strong. Maybe it makes you feel tender. Maybe it's a song that just makes you feel like yourself, the version of yourself that is underneath all the bloody noise and the grief and the uncertainty. Maybe it's a song that just lifts your mood and makes you want to move your body. And then, when the grief rises inside you, and it will, because that is what grief does, have the courage to put that song on. Play it. Not to fix anything and not to make the grief go away, but to remind yourself of the intention you had when you chose it. Let the song bypass the part of your brain that wants to analyze and fix and strategize. Let the song meet you in your body where the grief lives. That is where music goes. It does not need your thinking brain's involvement. It just gets right in there. And if you can only listen to that song for 15 seconds, it still counts. If you can listen to the whole thing and dance around your kitchen, that counts too. There's no minimum for this practice. And remember, you're not performing recovery. You are just letting something in. This grief is going to catch you off guard sometimes, because that is how grief works. But you don't have to be caught empty-handed. You can prepare for that moment. And having a song ready is one way of saying to yourself, I thought this feeling might come, and I'm not broken because it's here. I have something that is mine. And hit play. If anything in this episode made you think of someone, send it to them. Send it directly. Text it. Because this kind of grief is lonely. And reaching out and saying, I heard this and thought of you, is an act of tenderness, of acknowledgement, of kindness. And we can all do with some of that. Next week is the final episode in the series, and it is for the people I do not think we talk enough about, and that is the people who support their loved ones who are struggling, the partner, the parent, the friend, the people who are holding everything together and quietly falling apart. If that is you, or if you love someone who is carrying that weight, next week's episode will speak to you. What comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, with deep tenderness for whatever form of grief you are carrying, this comes straight from my heart to yours. This episode is also on my YouTube channel. Please follow and subscribe to this show. It really helps me. Until next week, thank you.